Okay, so the next session will be about managing conflicts for remote teams. We know how difficult it is to manage conflicts among startup founders, even if it's in person. So it's even more difficult right now given our current situation where we all deal online. So that's why we have Doc Suzy Rojas who will be talking about this so we can help have harmony within our teams. So Doc Suzy has handled the most difficult cases a psychologist can handle, including harassment, rape, incest, child abuse, etc. So you can only imagine how much of an expert Doc Suzy is in handling conflicts. She has also spent many years in corporate until she decided that her life mission was not to make companies any richer, but to make the people who make up these companies more productive, which is why she's a very effective coach for us here in Idea Space. So without further ado, let's please welcome Doc Suzy Rojas.
Am I going to live up to that? What an intro. My goodness, I could have never ever said it better. Uh, is this my mainframe or will I see everybody? Will I see the class or this is it?
You can
Can
click
click. Okay.
button in the upper right, I think.
All right, all right. So when I
Uh,
do my breakouts, I'll click the upper right. Tama? Tama ba?
yeah.
That's the way to do it, right? All right. Thank you so much, Gia. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Yeah? How come I cannot see everybody? There. How come I cannot see
You can
gallery
Doc
the
view?
Suzy, Doc
square
Suzy, you can click on the top right.
Top
There's
right. I
gallery
did.
view.
gallery view.
Yeah,
Yes.
how come I
Yep.
can't see
There's
everybody?
gallery view.
Yeah, I
You can
clicked it.
say gallery view.
There,
Then
there, 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 there. All right. All right. So, got it. What I lack
Yeah,
in
success.
technique, I know in concept, guys. I had such fun with Idea Space last 2 years because everybody thought all I could do or psychology was just about mental health. But guys, if you saw my video on my intro video, psychology is in everything. Everything, everything, everything. It is what we wear, what we choose to wear, what we choose to buy, how we look at groups, how we influence people to buy things, how we even project our future, and how we sell our products. So it is very important to understand concepts because they are what is going to make our life so much easier when we go out working. For example, for the other batches, I worked with Gian Gallegos, Experience Philippines, and we focused on what he wanted to really predict or to say to his clients. So it wasn't about travel as much as it was about connectedness, and that's why the drive of his campaign was like that. When I worked with Rachel Airship, uh, the the it was about team working. It's about networking and being together with different people who think differently. And so it was about social psychology and learning how to cooperate and coordinate with people. And so I was working with Idea Space and having so much fun and talking about different topics as in frameworks for selling, hypothesis building, branding, the philosophies of life, how people buy, how people think. I realized that many times, while these were important, a lot of the work was stuck when people couldn't have great conversations at work. Because from a theoretical perspective, we are a collective society. Very different from an individualist society, because in an individualist European society, and Alex knows this, the thinking is, I'm gonna go get ahead. I'm going to produce the best I can, and I will stand out. And then I will succeed. It doesn't work as much in a Filipino collective society because everybody is thinking about going or bringing the groups together. And because of that mindset of collectivism, the mindset of togetherness, the importance of family, and the importance of relationships as a tool to get forward in life, we just have to develop our ways of having great communication at work. How I'm sure many of you guys have had situations at work when someone says something really nasty, like you're presenting something and then they say, ah, alam ko na yan. Or something like, sigurado ka pa dyan. Or, didn't you make a flop the other time and how come you're presenting now? Or, isn't your idea before wrong? So why are you presenting now? The initial gut reaction is, should I put him in his place? Should I let him get one over me? Should I find a way to get back to him by asking him a question that I know he will never be able to answer? Or I can also sabotage his presentation when he comes on board by poking holes in his presentation and poking holes on his data. And when that happens, and as we are thinking that, guys, you're already out of the game. When that happens, you have already put yourself in a liability, because all of a sudden your energy and your focus is all over the place. And so while you're thinking whether or not you defend yourself or make yourself miserable or go forward and say something nasty, or maybe praise him so he won't attack you, or say that, oh, you're the best thing in life, and therefore I will follow you. When we do that, we can also set up ourselves for failure. Why? Because we ourselves are not selling ourselves and not making ourselves heard in the situation. And so this talk is about how to have proper conversations when you are in an extremely stressful situation where you want to fight. But my suggestion is, yes, you can fight, but it is the way you will fight that will make you win. So I'm not saying to stand down. I'm not saying to praise, or I'm not even saying let's just shut up and not talk about it. I'm saying there is a particular concrete strategy based on psychology on how you can maneuver in those situations and win. Next slide, please. So when we go, are we on the next slide? Yeah, Alex? Okay, great. So I want to go back. So when we go to our, can I have my grid again? Oh, my everybody grid. Alex,
Um,
how come I
you
cannot have my grid?
just click the gallery view again, Doc
Yeah,
Suzy.
I did, but it's not. It's only 6 people now. Do I? Maybe I pull it. You think?
You click the show grid video, the
No,
script.
I pull it. I pull it, guys. Sorry. So, guys, you see, I'm 53, 54 years old. Okay, so that's why you're not getting the best of IT from me. All right. So, as I was saying, let's now when you're in a situation, regardless of whether you're friends or you really curated the people that you're going to be talking to and being with, there will always be challenges. Challenges are normal, natural, and the way things are. Why? Simply because everybody is completely and uniquely different. Everybody, in any situation, everybody has their own perspective, their own dimension, their own strengths, their own backgrounds, and their own values. Now, all of these make up how they will see the situation. And so No matter how hard it is to play nice, even when you thought you were playing nice and thought you were being pleasant, you will get people who will think that you are not, simply because they're coming from another perspective. And so all of us, because of that situation, because we are constantly trying to balance ourselves at work, sometimes we impact people, and all of a sudden, without knowing it, they get triggered. And what happens? We get bullied, we get harangued, squid tactics happen to us, there are shouting matches, there is competition within the group, and all of a sudden someone is sidelined, and that person cannot contribute anymore. And when that happens, there goes now your career and everything you had worked for. There goes the years and months and months of job searching, finding the group, and all of a sudden, with all your technique and all your competence, no one listens to you because they felt you had slighted them. Or because you felt you were slighted, all of a sudden you reacted, and therefore people cut off and disengaged with you. And when that happens, normally there is a lot of mental health issues that come up. Depression in the workplace is constant. Anxiety in the workplace, stress related, PTSD. All these concerns come from stress in the situation, in the environment, especially in time of COVID, when the pressure from outside is tremendous. And the idea and the desire to fight back and to say something off the cuff and to defend yourself and to be on a negative mindset is a normal gut reaction. All I'm saying is, yes, these are normal gut reactions, but they are not as knee-jerk as you think they can be. If you think, I think it and then I do it, there is actually a tiny space in between wherein you can choose what you want to do. And so, can I have the next slide? Okay. And so work situations turn bad, come out like this. All of a sudden, there's awkward silence, there's disaster, there's Armageddon, there's snide remarks. And when we're presenting some fantastic work, someone disagrees, and all of a sudden, we are put off kilter, and everything becomes bad. Next slide, please. I suggested to you earlier that while we think we are in a knee-jerk reaction, that is not really so. It is proven that there is a pause. Everyone can create that pause. It is a of practice in creating that pause. In this scenario or in this talk, we will look at how to create that pause, how to lengthen that pause, and how to use that pause to your greatest advantage. It is a strategy of thinking so that you can create a time space where you can present your mindset and your point of view in the most beautiful, generative, positive position, such that you have now control of the situation and the situation does not control you. So let's start with reflection number one. Alex, could you just send that material out for me?
Hey guys, I'll be sending the a link on Slack since we can't open it through.
So let me know, Alex, when they can access it.
Okay. There we go. It's sent.
Yep. All right. Can anyone access it? Does everyone have teammates? Can everyone break out into their teams?
For 3 minutes, right, Doc?
Yes, please.
Suzy, there's a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will you be answering it later or now?
Which one, please?
Jake has a question. Theoretically,
Let's,
how do you
okay,
know? Can you?
let's keep Jake in in suspense. Where I don't actually see the question box. Would you how do I read the question box over here, guys?
Down at the chat.
Doc Suzy, you can just press Alt H. That will show you the chat.
Alt
H.
H.
Yes.
Nope, it did not show me the chat.
Sorry, she's using
Mac.
Mac.
Ah,
Okay,
okay.
you can bring your cursor down to the bottom, move it down, and you'll see chat.
Yeah, I did, but then there's not. Here now. It went now here. Okay, here it is. All right, Jake. Theoretically, how much? How how do you know when you reach irreconcilable differences with your co-founder? From experience, when do you know when it is time to give up on a relationship? And how do you oh my, and how do you keep the friendship intact while ending the business side of the relationship? All right. Okay. So how do you know when you reach irreconcilable differences with your co-founder? So Jake, where is now? I want to see now everybody again. How come I cannot see anyway. Anyway, I can't see everybody. Anyway, so Jake, the way to do it, all right, is there is no theoretical science on it. It is a function of what you are willing to pay. All right. Because in every breakup of every situation, in every conflict, in every quagmire, when there is a clash, no matter if you have the upper hand, there is always a cost to that clash. So to answer all the questions, it would be there are variety of techniques that you must do before you decide to end the relationship. So it is a function of negotiation, the ability to step back, look at the situation from a issue concern and not a person concern, so that you have solutions to generate. And when you have ideal solutions to generate, you go through each of those solutions, because it is only when you have exhausted the solutions do you now attack or do you now break off. Before that, the cost is just too high. So you must be able to weigh the cost of the breakup, the cost to you, because there is always going to be a cost. And the friendship will be impacted because people are people. Okay? So does everybody now have the material, guys? Yes? Okay. So I need you to go
Doc
to
Suzy
your, yep.
we'll break them out into rooms.
Yes,
But
please.
guys, if you have questions for Doc Suzy, let's unmute ourselves and speak up, please.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
make it
much better.
easy. Let's
Yes.
make it easy for her.
Thank you,
She's not a
everybody.
tech.
Thank you.
She's not a tech mentor. She's a people mentor, and you'll find that
Yes.
out soon.
Hi,
I
can
am
I
a
ask some questions?
psychologist.
Thanks,
Yes.
Jake.
Hi, I'm Alvin. I have a question to ask Dr. Suzy.
Yes, Jake. Yes, Alvin. Yes.
So, because I think the earlier speaker said, Wallen, he said that it's better for co-founders to have like different traits so that you complement each other in the startup, right? So the cost of that, from my experience, because before I used to work with like different people, like people from overseas and stuff, and typically people from the West, as you mentioned before, they have different personality, right?
Yes.
They're more individualistic. So in your opinion, like for the Philippine context, for the startup, is it better to have like different personalities or like the same? Like people who are more similar or different? What's the right balance for that?
There are two schools of thought on it, right? From the perspective of complementarity, meaning difference in personalities and traits, the rigor or the conflict generates the energy and generates generates different solutions. All right. From the perspective of social psychology and working within groups, the ability for people to work with or let's say in relationships, the ability to have people similar to each other creates a pleasantness and creates a calmness within the situation. Regardless of whether so in a in in both scenarios, because personality traits are only one function of the individual, because you also have values, you have beliefs, you have dispositions, you have culture, there will always be anyway differences even in people who are, let's say, ISTJ. Even all ISTJs are not going to be the same. So to say that they will be the same because they have the same ISTJ or the same MBTI factorial, they will still not be the same and there will still be conflict. So the answer to you is yes, in one theory, complementarity works. The difference of personalities create that structure. And there are many ways in which they can still get along because it's not only about personality. On the other leg, even if they are similar, the friction can happen because they are dissimilar. Did I answer the question?
So just to clarify,
Yes.
is it better to like have people with different like Myers-Briggs personality, but like having same culture to bind them together?
Even with the same Myers-Briggs personality, because the individual is significantly different because of their experiences, even if they're all Filipino, all from Ateneo, and all ISTJ, it will really never be the same.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think Doc Suzy will explain what's gonna happen next, and then after she explains, we'll be breaking you out into the room so you can discuss with your teams. So, Doc Suzy?
All right. So we need to look at the activity sheet. And if you can just kindly answer the activity sheet. And the instructions are in the activity sheet. And then I'll give you 3 minutes to 1 minute to answer them by yourselves and to share your answers and talk about your answers to your group mates. Okay?
Okay, so Doc Suzy will just break them out into their
Yes,
group.
please.
Okay,
Yes,
so
please. Thank you.
Yes.
okay, go guys. So please click the prompt when you get prompted to
Yes.
break out. Thank you. Everyone seems fine. Are you guys okay? Did you guys manage to reflect well on yourselves?
Did you guys do reflection 1 and reflection 2?
Yes.
All right. What did you guys do?
Yes, they did.
We
Yes, they did.
almost completed reflection 2. We
All right.
completed reflection 1 and we almost completed reflection 2.
How
I'm
did
sad.
it go? How did reflection 1 go?
It's actually nice to find out that there are some items that similar among each team member, and basically what I found out about them is that how they actually managed to turn that into something they can further improve themselves,
Which was
particularly in handling a situation like that.
which
So yeah.
which one? Which particular item was what did in one of the just I mean there's several, right? In the whole sheet there's several. Which
Yeah.
blurb in particular?
Like for example, we almost all of us experienced the item number 1 in reflection 1. So many people were talking and shouting. I wanted to just leave the meeting. And personally, me, when I experienced that particular situation, but I do my best to compose myself. Although there's a tendency for me to become really hot-tempered, but I do my best to be, relaxed and maintain my composure. Same thing with the red tape. because almost every company has red tape. So
All right.
it's basically kind of like an accepted fact that you have to deal with. And you just have to focus on what you do to move on. Something like that.
And red tape sometimes, and sometimes people feel, or people have an interpretation about red tape, which is, kailangan ba talaga to? Or pinapahirapan mo lang ako? Yeah? There's
Yeah,
something
that's
like
so
that.
true.
There's always that agenda somewhere along the line, right?
Mhm.
Anyone else? Anyone else, guys?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. For reflection too, me and my partner, we both checked almost everything. Like almost each of these situations get under our skin, except one of each of us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for myself, it's the fourth to the last. So when there's a new task to do, we have to we have to look for teammates and people not raising their hands to help out. So that's the only thing that does not really get under my skin because
All
I'm
right.
so used to it at work. So, but the good thing about that is it helps you yourself step up.
Mm-hmm.
Like
It
it
helps
helps
you
you,
step up, right?
yeah, it helps me step up. So that's why it doesn't bother me too much because it helped me become the person that I am.
True. If there's always a silver, what you're saying is there's always a silver lining in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
However, yet it is also a growth phase in terms of how to negotiate that you don't accept everything on your plate at the same time.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? No more? All right. So I meant to give that a sign, that insight, to say that everybody goes through these situations, and the workspace is precisely that way because of different personalities and different ways of doing things. And the thing is, everybody brings their story into any situation. And I now will go through the strategies on how we can maneuver through that space and time before the thought of, nakakainis naman to, pinapagawa niya sa akin. Or, right? Or, um, why are you again being contradictory to me? Didn't I already explain that before? Or the nonverbal of todo irap or leave the room, right? And everybody has that feeling because everybody has something going on in their minds when they are in that situation. They bring their past experiences, they bring their challenges and their personal limitations and perceived weaknesses into the situation, therefore clouding the situation and making conflict more evident or more apparent. And so I will now talk about strategy. All right, I promised you strategy on how we can, the first how we can manage these conflicts. All right. First thing is, the reason why I gave that assignment is we need to be able to identify when it happens, when the situations or when these triggers happen. All right. Okay. Right. When they happen. All right. Let me 1 minute. Okay. So when we identify how these triggers are happening, it is a psychological challenge, or normally it is something that has happened before. What do I mean? If, for example, someone says, "Can I borrow a pencil from you?" and all of a sudden your reaction is much stronger than the normal reaction that it would elicit, it means that you are overbearing or overreading or putting too much emphasis in the situation that is happening, and you are carrying things from your past. It could be, for example, your heated discussion with your boss reminds you of a fight with an older sibling that you have not been able to process before. And so it's an immediate reaction when you see someone older yelling and someone in power yelling at you. Your reaction goes back into the future and says, isn't this the way it was before when my dad did this to me long time ago? And the reaction right away happens. Or it could be your reaction to being bullied into a position that you've accepted before. Maybe a reason. For example, you're presenting and the whole room doesn't like what you're saying and they bully you into submission, and your reaction, your gut reaction, is to storm out the door. It could be reflective of something or a bullying that had happened in the past that you have not been able to close. And therefore, when a similar situation happens, you get triggered by it. And so to be able to handle it, the first strategy, if that is the case, if you are constantly triggered by the same thing over and over, and there is a pattern, it might have been something that is coming from the back, and therefore you therefore if you know it is going to happen, you mentally prepare yourself before going into a situation. So when you know you are going to a room that is not a friendly room, that you have not been able to generate relationships with, the first thing you're going to put in your mind is, I am fine, this is fine, and I can handle it. The reason you're doing that, is when you get into the fray, because you know someone is going to trigger you and you are not going to be in your best foot forward, you will need to prepare for that time. What we do not want to happen is to create a situation, to create a negative impact that we are unable now to reverse. And that is why you need the sacred space. The sacred space is essential for you to create a solution or an answer, or to step back from the situation so you are not reactive, and you can come back or reply or manage the situation in a with more equanimity. So strategy one is, does this situation remind you, is it a pattern that has constantly reminded you of something in the past, and therefore it is something in the past that you need to clear with, and then therefore you need to pause because the overreaction is coming from something that happened in the past and not what is happening right now. Any questions on that one first before I give the reflection? Any questions, guys? Any examples, maybe? No? Yeah.
Suzy, I think there's a question from Team Chords.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can read it for me, please.
Well, I would like to ask if, assuming that you have identified a pattern or something that really irritates you when you talk with someone or if you have a fight with someone, is it necessary to remove that pattern, or you can just take it slowly and then do no reaction at all, or you must really remove that? I mean, if, how can I say this? Because there are times when you need to fix something, and there are also times where you just need to hold yourself down and calm yourself before acting upon it. So I would like to ask if
could you give an example so at least it's more concrete to me, so I know what I'm answering. Yeah.
For example, someone is always being a bully or a jerk at work,
Yeah.
but he's giving some point, and then of course you have as human being you will be irritated by that,
Yes.
but of course you won't do any action first, but you'll still get irritated. So my
That's right.
question is, do we really have to remove the irritation, or can we just um, more calmly, or we can just calm ourselves first and then take on the action?
All right. The challenge with dealing in, let's say, a situation where there is a bully and you have not been able to center yourself. The reason for the pause is to not be reactionary, not to further aggress the situation. The bully will continue to bully, and it's really all a function of handling him before you are able to respond. The objective of the calm before the storm, before of speaking nicely, is to be able to create phrases and to manage the situations such that the other person does not get the better of you, so that when you reply or when you retort, you are in the center and you are reacting completely to the questions that he is answering. The question on pattern, on seeing patterns and when pattern or when you can you change your pattern, change the way or change being triggered because you see a pattern, change a way of reacting that you have been used to when you are facing a bully. That takes longer because that is rooted in some situations in the past that you will need to work on separate from the situation. Suffice it to say, the recognition that when there is a bully and you know that he is irritating you and you want to react, the best is to create the space so that you react as objectively and as diplomatically as you can in the situation. If we do not act diplomatically, what can come out are things like, bakit ikaw? Mali ka rin naman ah. Which is to interject or to be defensive. Or, bakit ganyan? I don't think that's the way to go it. It's to be difficult in the situation and not to be able to create the relationships. A beautiful conversation or the management of the conflict always comes out towards relationship building, which is what I started with in the beginning, because if we do not have relationships at work, then we are kissing our lives goodbye. We are making things much more difficult than they are because everything is a matter of perception and interpretation. The best strategy is a function of who says it, when it is said, and the interpretation and seeing the situation. So it is better to always find ways to create engagements and relationships and to limit the destruction of these relationships by having conversations which are conflicting.
So it's normal to be irritated as long as we approach
Yes.
the irritation in a diplomatic way and in a way where we can both understand each other in an objective point.
That's right. The irritation is normal, and it is normal because maybe the irritation is because he wants it a different way and you do. And where does that come from? Because he's a marketing person and you are an operations person. The perception or the way you see the scenario and the suggestions and solutions to get out of those scenarios will come from your perception, your personality, to the issue of Jake earlier, the traits, to the feeling of confidence and competence in your skill. So you will always have a conflict. There will always be that way. And it's a matter of managing that situation.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have another question. I think Cass from Bean is raising her hand. So
Yep.
Cass, you can unmute yourself to ask your
Hi, Doc.
Hey.
I just have a question regarding this, right? So you're saying that we have to identify our triggers so that we'll be able to address them and work it out ourselves.
Yes.
That's something that I think takes time, right? It's not
Yes.
something that we can work on right away. But in line with that, right? Because now I'm
Mhm.
trying to identify what my trigger points are and stuff like that. But I've had situations where people tell me that you're too emotional, or that, translating that to being an emotional leader,
Mhm.
they make me feel like it's not right to become an emotional leader. But the thing is, right, I try to empathize first before making any reaction. So I just want to know, like, from your perspective,
Mhm.
um is being emotional really such a weakness in being a leader? How do you address that?
Being being emotional actually has gotten such a bad rap, and it's quite ridiculous
Yeah.
because psychology is emotion. And if the world uses psychology to make all decisions in their life, well, everyone is using emotion all their life. Emotion is simply a power. It is not. It is simply simply a way of moving, or a theory of moving things forward. Some move it forward by force or dictatorial is an emotion, but it just looks like it's harder and more driven. What they are saying probably is you're too touchy-feely, but being touchy-feely and compassion and nurture is the new methodology for leadership, especially in a very non-directive culture like the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
and what is the question again? Sorry, I just explained first the theory. What is the
No, no,
question?
I was asking about, like, whether or not is it, like, truly a weakness, because I agree with what
Yeah.
you're saying, right? We're
Yes.
advocating a lot about compassionate leadership, but it's just, I think the general mindset of people is that exactly what you said, right? Emotion is a
Hmm.
weakness. And I
Part
think
of
startups, that's something that we want to know, because this is part of our lives now, right?
And from the perspective, this is the difference again from a gender perspective. When a man is emotional, he is vulnerable and he is one with the people, right? When a woman is emotional, she is weak and unreliable.
Yeah.
Gender perspective. So it is not the emotion itself, but the interpretation based on the culture and based on the gender of the person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Doc.
All right?
Yeah, thank you.
So Jake, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, hi again, Doc.
Yeah.
Question for me though. How do you? This is something that I've been battling with. So, admittedly, I have this issue with regards to myself.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address a short fuse?
A
And
short fuse. All right.
short fuse, a short temper, and how do you address superiority complex? So sometimes, kasi it's innate, it naturally comes out to me.
Mm-hmm.
When, like, for example, like in my head, uh, when someone I feel that is not coming from judgment, like initial judgment, like I think this guy is not competent enough or whatever. So sometimes it exudes from my
Mm-hmm.
personality, and admittedly, it hurts for the
It
person.
hurt. All right.
Here's the person, here's the team, here's the dynamics. And for the first one, the short fuse and the short temper, I'm not sure if I have a short fuse or am I just like very competitive, and sometimes people misunderstood that in a sense. Similar to the people here who watched Michael Jordan's Last Dance. So Michael Jordan was very emotional, very, for lack of a better term, he was being a dick about it in
Mm-hmm.
terms of how he competed in playing basketball and everything. But at the end of the day, he was loved because he was competitive. But if you dive into his personality, he's really uh, a jerk. And but the main reason for that is basically trying to push everyone and bring them up to his level, right? So how do you try to strike that balance that you wanna pull everyone up and be at your level, or and balance everything that doesn't hurt their feelings. I know you won't be able to satisfy everyone, but is there a better way to actually do it?
So the question is, do I use a push strategy wherein I whip people to shape such that they will become better, or
Yeah.
is there another way?
Yeah. So
All right.
is there a better way to push them in terms of, because I tried pulling, I tried pushing. Sometimes different personalities have different triggers, and I'm very aware of that. But sometimes it gets repetitive and tiring. And what do you think are patterns that we should look for in terms of generally just trying to motivate, externally motivate your teammates?
Right. So you're talking about patterns of motivation
Yeah.
relative to different personality traits and relative to your own inclinations.
Yeah. And I
Right?
guess I even resorted to, I'm not sure if how accurate this is, but yeah, I've even resorted to like looking at horoscopes or whatnot, Chinese zodiac signs or whatnot. So to the point that, okay, I really have to find something, because there are people that's easy to motivate, right? But there are
Right.
people that you try whatever way, you try to push, you try to pull, you try to scream at them, you try to hold your hand to it, but nothing seems to work. So it came to a point that, are you just really incompetent to do the job, or do you not want to do the job, or it's
All
more
right.
of that. So
The name of the lady who spoke earlier. What's her name? Sorry. The lady earlier who spoke. I'm
I
gonna
think her
relate to
name is
Cass.
Cass.
Cass,
Yeah.
hi. Yes.
All right. I will relate my answer to Jake using the position of leadership and emotionality from Cass. All right. I agree with you, Jake, that it is difficult to get people on your side, especially if if your natural personality is to be driven and competitive and to be highly conscientious. All right. A highly conscientious person is someone who does his work on time regularly and always meets the deadline. Right. Very different from someone who is low in conscientiousness but high in creativity. So you would have someone who lazes around, moves around, and says, aha, I have an idea, ta, here it is. And then it comes out the most spectacular work that you have ever seen. Because he feels he has to generate the emotion and the feeling and the perception before he is able to write something. Very different from a hardwired person, left-brain person, who does theory, structure, and pencil pushing to create or generate an outcome. And so therefore, in the perspective of the pause, it is to be able to identify that each of them have completely different personalities, and it is up to you, the leader, to develop a relationship individually with each of them so that you know how to move them forward. I know it is difficult and I know it is challenging, but that is the work of a leader. Because as I was saying earlier, the leader is in a position that he will never be able to do everything that is put on his plate. And so he must be able to motivate. And there is no motivation at all without relationship. Impossible. And there is no relationship without knowing value, what their values, their goals, what scares them, and what their desires of their life is. It's not possible.
got it.
Yeah. Okay? Can I work now on strategy number 2? I will not anymore give the assignment. Strategy number 2. So the first one, guys, is knowing when you are triggered. To know it, right? Know when triggered. The second one is change your story. All right. Narrative, okay, narrative is about the story you tell yourself when you see something. And I was saying earlier that there is no such thing as a objective story. It really never is. So for example, Ateneo Lasal basketball game. If you ask the Atenean, so you have the game, right? You have the game, everybody, and then all of a sudden someone won, right? You ask the Atenean, how was the game? The Atenean is going to say, you know, my players were great and the other player was so bad. And in fact, when Lasal did so many things that the referee did not call, and they played so dirty, despite that, Ateneo won, and they prayed and they were playing like gentlemen, and they did everything to have teamwork, and it was fantastic. It was just fantastic. It was showing how confident and competent the team is. Game. You walk over to the last line. How was the game? Alam mo yung Atenista na yan, napakadaya, siguro binayaran ng Ateneo yung referee. Pagkatapos tingnan mo, it's in Cubao, and Cubao is near Ateneo, and therefore it was within their home court, so of course they're going to win. You know, but actually we played fantastically. It was just that no one was really on our side, and our team member over here just was not in his right mind, and therefore they're really a better team, but well, it just so happened that we did not win. And then you go to the referees, and they will say, no, because the number of fouls and the number of fouls and wrong moves were called, and it was done correctly. Ateneo really won. So you can see, there's one game, but two perceptions. People will pick up different things depending on what they want to see. And that's the reality. I will now use social psychology, concept of social psychology. And you guys, you watch all these films, right? You guys watch all these dramas about Shawshank Redemption, and people being interviewed, the investigator being interviewing the prisoner, right? The science tells you that when you sit in the back of the prisoner and see the perspective and face the investigator, the tendency for you as the person to make the judge whether or not is guilty, whether or not he is guilty, the person, when the judge is sitting behind the prisoner, he will believe that the judge was the one who manipulated the situation so that the prisoner will be found guilty. Go the other way, and we sit behind the investigator, and we hear the same story that the person is telling, right? And as they listen, and as you listen to them, the judge will say, and listen to the prisoner, you will realize, or you will think, no, that's not true. The prisoner is not at all guilty. So it is a matter of perception on where you're coming from, even from a physical perception, listening to the story, to make a judgment. And that is why when you watch TV and they have the police interrogation, the camera is always in the center. Because the position of the camera in the center almost always gives an objective and balanced view of what is right and what is wrong. So and I'm going to the point that even if you find that you are that you are right, and your ideas are right, and your point is right, you are still not objective. That is your interpretation. That is your narrative based on what you want, your personality, what's important to you, where it will get you. And that is how you will see the situation. So in the pause, it is to realize that you are not seeing the whole story, that there is more to the story, and that he is seeing another perspective because he also is reacting based on what he finds and what points are appropriate to him. And that is why the pause is important. The pause is important to realize that there is another side, that you're only using your side, and therefore you need to take a step back. Are there any questions on that strategy? So that is narrative. And might I say also that when you are in the heat of the situation, you will judge the other person based on his bad personality traits that you pick up, but you will judge yourself based on the situation. So it will be, kasi siya napakamaldita niya, ninanakaw niya yung points ko. And he's making sure that he can get the program that I wrote, and that's what he really wants. He's just a magnanakaw. Always like that. Versus when you talk about yourself, well, this because it was such a difficult situation and I had to defend myself because it felt like everybody was against me in that situation. But when you talk about the other person, kasi magnanakaw siya. Kasi he wants to be ahead. Because he just wants to be seen as the star. And that's why he's like that. Not recognizing the situation. Any questions, guys?
I think you can proceed, Suzy.
Yep. All right. Strategy number 3. And this one you can even use when you sell. Okay. There are only strategy number 3, guys, is slide number 16. All right. Guys, there are only 5 needs of every human being. And in every situation that presents itself, even when you are selling your product, you are only trying, people who are buying are only trying to solve or get through these 5 needs. Need to survive, which is, I need to keep my job. I need to keep my position. Need for love. I need to feel that people like me and enjoy me and feel that I am one with them. Need to belong. The need to be within the team and accepted by a group. The need for power, which is the need to be seen as competent, strong, capable, and necessary. And need for fun, this is need for enjoyment. And so, in a situation when someone is arguing with you and arguing their point and doesn't even make sense anymore, you try to listen, what need is he trying to fulfill? For example, you're going to have a new marketing plan. And you are presenting the new marketing plan. And it just so happens when you roll out the product, something in the back end has to change. Some coding has to change in the back end. And you get the tech person, and tech person is resisting the change, even if it actually makes a lot of sense and people will, and the whole group will make lots of money. And you can't understand why he is resisting to making the change because all he is saying is that, nandyan na yan, nagamit na natin, let's just do it, let's just change it when we need to change it down the line. Let's see whether or not it is really necessary to change. If his need was for need to survival, maybe he's thinking, if I change that and I can't really do a good job, I may no longer have a job. Need for survival. And so he's saying no, but his actual reason is that because I'm not good enough and I might lose my job. Need for love. Oh no, that means I did something wrong before and the boss will not like me anymore. Think less of me because I did a code that is not expandable, and therefore I will lose his love and affection and attention. I will say no. Or if I change it, what if they will see that I'm really not necessary, I'm not one of the team, and what if my teammates actually don't want to change it because they're so tired already, and they just resisting to change it, and therefore if I say I will change it, then they will be mad at me, then I don't want to change it anymore. Need to belong, need for power. But if I change it and make it simpler, then all of a sudden everybody will know how to do this, and therefore I'm not going to be the most important person in the team. Or if I change it, it's going to take so much time on my weekend, I'm going to have a hard time, it's going to be boring, I'm not going to have any fun, it's going to be so much work, I'm not going to do it anymore. He is not going to be able to say that. You're going to be able to need to pick it out. What exactly is the reason why he is saying no? And that is strategy number 3. Everybody reacts based on those 5 needs. Any questions?
So how to identify actually what's the point of no? I mean,
What's knowing? Yes, you need to understand. You need to understand exactly why he is saying no, and that is what you do in the pause. When you're able to listen and ask questions on why he is saying no, you will be able to identify what need he is fulfilling by saying no to you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
What if, for example, because majority of what I got from all the strategies and all the reflections that most of us experience the same thing, although we don't know that we weren't aware. For example, what if you failed to do this before, and your boss looks down on you? If you ruined relationships, how do you redeem yourself for situations like that?
Okay, you're right. No, the reason for the pause is so that the whole thing doesn't boomerang on you. And so now what happens when that has been done already, and now you need to regroup and get everybody together again? There are many strategies to engage people in a situation. And I will give you 3. Okay. The first one is to rebuild a network. Right. Any decision, any promotion, anything that has to be approved is always approved in a collective manner, collective sense. Such that even when the boss approves something you did, in the back of his head, he already knows that the marketing person likes it, the operations person likes it, the general manager likes it, and his boss will like it. So even if he's the singular approving party, he has considered the collectivity of the decision making. And so the movement is recognizing I have made a mistake. I now have to build my relationships again. And the only way I can do that is to be through building my networks. How does one build networks? By trading or by exchanging. The easiest way to build a network is to do something for someone. Immediate reaction, immediate way of when you want someone to be on your side is to ask them, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Always. Because when people have received something from you in this psychology, this sense of, and I have now to return the favor to you is embedded already. And the minute they embed, once that thought is embedded and they give something to you, the psychology says that when you give something to someone, there's an implicit belief that you like the person. And so you try to generate relationships by doing things constantly for other people through that network, by developing that network. Yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, right.
Hello.
The second one is not so good because the second one is to power play. Or the second one is to use chismis. That's not really productive, right? Chismis basically is, and you will try to spread word of some of the other person that you don't like so that people will get on your side and they will now like you. That's counterproductive. In the end, it will bite you. But that's one way of getting collectivism. The other one is to be autocratic, which is to demand that they follow you because you are in a certain position. Those two I didn't mention. Those two are low-brow, low-fodder strategies that work. However, what I gave you, the first one I gave you is the best strategy. Longer, definitely, but more secure.
Thank you.
Yep. I think I only have until 4 o'clock, guys, right? Diane?
You have until 4:15, but
4:15.
how many more minutes do you need?
Oh, well, I will give you one more strategy.
Mel can adjust actually.
Okay. One more. So I have now know your trigger. Number 2, what is your narrative? Know the narrative and recognize you have a narrative. Number 3, you need to know what the other person needs. And number 4, which is slide number 19, is control your thoughts. When a person is in complete stress, and this is what's happening to the COVID-19, all right? Automatically, they are reactive, defensive, and extremely negative. Their anxiety is up, and when the anxiety is up, the interpretation of that anxiety means the anxiety is interpreted to mean something is going wrong. I need to protect myself. That is in a stressful situation. That is in conflict. When actually, if you look at anxiety or you look at feelings of nervousness on a regular day, feelings of nervousness is only an indication of something is important to you. So when you are going to receive a medal and you're nervous about stepping on stage, you're thinking you're going to trip, it only means that it's so important to you, the medal is so important to you, and it makes you feel good, and that's why you want to do a good job. It's the same level of, and when, for example, you're going to do your last great performance of ice skating and you're going to step on the ice and you know that everybody loves you, your feelings of nervousness is actually excitement and happiness and fulfillment because you're going to give back. So it is not the nervousness itself, it is the interpretation of the nervousness. And in high anxiety and stress and conflict, the interpretation of nervousness is attack. I am being attacked. I have to protect myself. All right? And so what you need to do is recognize that I am having a negative thought attack. I'm believing that this person is such a dunce and he and my project is not going to get on in time, and I am now going to lose the opportunity of a lifetime to get to the market that I want at this given time. If that is called catastrophic thinking, because now you're thinking or you're making an assumption that just because he is a few hours late, it is now catastrophe. First is to acknowledge the thought, calm your mind. This is only a thought. It is not necessarily true. And recognize what is in the moment. Right now, I am feeling irritated. I acknowledge I am feeling irritated. I acknowledge I am thinking negatively of him. I am staying at the moment of my irritation and letting it run through me. However, now this is new way of thinking. Just because he has not done his job, that doesn't mean that this is the only solution. There are other things I can work on at the same time to compensate for that stuff that he has not done. I accept that now this is compassion. I accept I am angry. I will address him later, but right now I am going to stick to what I know how to do to control the situation. And that is management of negative thought. Any questions?
I think Joseph and Nina are raising their hands.
Yep.
Hi, Dr. Suzy. Thank you for this. Really, really, really interesting. I'm fascinated by this topic. I think the sort of a macro question on all the strategies you've presented. I think with engaging your teams or understanding what the real need is of someone, so you know how to motivate them, resolving conflict, all of these things in the normal reality face-to-face, when you have the physical meetings and all of that is, well, it could be said easier, but it's definitely different to this new reality that we're now in. And I think with, of course, coronavirus, which I think has sped up our future reality quite quickly, that this is probably our reality for the foreseeable future. And the future of work was always going remote anyway. So we have less physical connection and sort of meeting points with our team members, with our co-founders and everybody. So are there any sort of tricks or any ways in which you would suggest we could actually replace that physical way of resolving conflicts? Are there any different kind of tricks that you've seen over the last couple of months in terms of managing remote teams, specifically that can be done online, or different ways in resolving conflicts that you couldn't otherwise do in a physical capacity?
The term to address the situation that everyone is feeling now, the technical term to address the situation of levels of anxiety which permeate the situation now, is called anticipatory anxiety. The anxiety generated by not knowing what is going to happen next. And because of the anticipatory anxiety, that means the uncertainty is high. Therefore, the sense of security is very low. And therefore, the sense of not being able to connect and not knowing where the other person is and knowing that he is excitable and stressed causes teams, especially in remote environments, to be disengaged. So what you are trying again to actually solve is the need for belongingness and love. It goes back to that. So the strategy, the question now becomes, what is the strategy to engage belongingness, the need for belongingness and love in a remote environment team? And it actually is the same. Is the same. Rather than taking the coffee, you're just substituting the coffee breaks and the lunchroom breaks with actual one-on-one calls with your teams. This time, talking about things that are not work-related. So you have a chat channel for fun stuff, a chat channel for work stuff, hours for fun stuff, hours for work stuff. And the conversation needs to be engaged, or when you talk to your teams, the engagement of the conversation using the 5 needs is the way you can message the coaching. I know that you're not feeling very secure right now because things are very tough, and you're feeling disempowered because you don't know who now to follow, because it is very difficult to see who the leader is now. And what fun is it to really work at home when there's so many people around, and all the people are coming at all times. My coach to you is, you know what? You just answer the emails from 9 to 6. And in the meantime, on lunch break and coffee time, let's have coffees with your different team members at certain hours of the day. And incidentally, because you are important to me, I want to know how your family is and how they're working through this situation. Is it possible to talk to your child just to see how they're going? And I just like to connect with you and know what it's like to be in your shoes or to work in your shoes at this time. So if you memorize the 5 needs, you use it in a conversation to remotely guide your teams as a coaching session, you have it made.
Thank you, Dr. Suzy. Really,
right.
really interesting. Thanks very much for that.
So the thinking is always the environmental awareness of the anxiety is extremely high, and they are very stressed and they feel disconnected. When you frame it that way and you look at the 5 needs, you see how the 5 needs can reduce the level of stress in that situation.
And just Dr. Suzy as well, just thought if I could just very quickly share on a related note, something that we've noticed is that people often do not take days off because of working from home, and they feel like it's a waste of a leave because they're already at home. So something we've been doing is like really forcing your guys to actually take a break and take leave because it's extremely important. So just related to what you're saying, I think it's fully agree.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi. Probably if I can just add more, right? So in handling teams, especially remote teams, the one thing that we really practice is over communication because everything is uncertain at that point, right? And direction comes from any direction, and therefore you need to be stable enough to ensure that you tell your team members that there might be a change in direction every now and then, and therefore I need you to be ready. Right? And if there's anything that we can do for you, please let me know so we can go through this as successfully as we want it to.
Yep. Hi, Mel. You're there pala. Anyone else?
Yes. Hi, Doc Suzy.
Yeah.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, since we are, particularly for Everything Green, since we are a community-based social enterprise, we are dealing with persons with disabilities as our teammates, as our main artisans. And during this pandemic, they have been like messaging us about like some certain anxieties that they have. So it's like, for me as the founder, but I have that feeling of that I should carry that burden that they have, that I have to carry that burden, their burden, because they cannot feed their families at this time. So it's like a heavy weight on my part. So in terms of controlling that anxiety, because since I have this certain because I've seen their situation even in the poverty areas, because I have been in their places for the past weeks to deliver their needs for the meantime, just to like provide them temporary relief. So how do I now how would you suggest that you could actually conquer that that feeling of carrying a big burden of a social problem? Yeah, it's kind of deep. Yeah.
The question is, how is that? How are you asking the question related to your delivering goods to your workers who are PWD?
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to frame the question. I'm trying to frame my answer. So I need to frame the question a bit more. How are you asking that question in relation? Are you asking that question in relation to how will I deal with the PWD manpower I have because they're having a difficult time? Is that the bottom question, or
yes,
what?
basically, since they have been like messaging us about if they still have work after this, what would be the future of our of their jobs, if they would still be continuing to work uh, even after this pandemic. So they have like certain questions that I couldn't answer straight at this time, and it's very difficult to communicate to it because since they are deaf, so it's like very challenging for me. So
It's an interesting question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I actually relates to my client earlier this morning who was trying to find a way to talk to her child that she was separating, and the child was 10 years old. So the question is similar to yours. How do I tell my child that I separate? So in yours is, how do I tell my PWD? How do I address my PWD when he asks me questions about my job, basically, right? 2 points. The perspective of PWD, kung saan sila nanggagaling, yung kinanggalingan nila, all right, is about kulang ako and there is something wrong with me. At hindi ko kaya. Yan talaga yung framework nila. Hindi ko kaya kasi kulang ako and there is always something wrong with me. Right. And therefore, because kulang ako and there is something wrong with me, the question now becomes, am I going to be secure? They're not asking whether or not they have a job to go back to. The bottom line question is, will I be secure during the time of COVID? Is your business secure enough for me in the time of COVID? That's what they're asking. In that situation, similar to the other situation, to my other case situation, it is the communication of support and that you are doing everything you can and that it will be okay. Whether it will be okay because you're doing everything you can, and if things change, you need to transfer them to someone else, or whether everything is okay, the job is secure because you will be able to provide, the system will be able to provide for them. That is the question they're asking. They're asking, am I secure? And the response is, I am supportive, I am doing everything you can, and I will always have a plan.
Okay, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
No problem. From that perspective, always, kulang ako because PWD. The challenge in working in PWD, in their relationship to God, by the way, is there's something wrong with God because God made me kulang. Yan ang thinking nila.
Hi, Doc Suzy.
Yep.
Just 2 questions. First question, you mentioned that Filipinos are mostly non-directive culture.
Yep.
Do you think it's a positive or advantage or disadvantage, and why?
It is neither an advantage or disadvantage, it's just is. Meaning it's in the Philippines and it's had and it is making it work. Because the culture is already set up from a collective experience, the way you rate job satisfaction. In fact, job satisfaction is one of the elements of job satisfaction is, and how am I feeling? How do I feel I am connected to people at work? Collective. When you talk about job stress, another issue about in the workspace, the collective aspect becomes, do I have friends in the workspace that I can relate to? When you talk about support systems, Filipino perspective, the measurement is, do I have family and friends that I can depend on when I go through difficult times? So because the system and the culture is consistent and strong, regardless of the situation already is posited based on that collective culture, and therefore it is a matter of working on it or with it and making it work to your advantage. So it is neither right or wrong, much more than working it to your advantage. Is that okay?
Yes, good. Thank you. Second question is, if you will suggest or advise, or you will give a gift because of the crisis right now, people have lots of anxiety, depressions, and stress. What kind of activities do you think that you will suggest or advise or even give a gift?
This is for who are you going to give a gift to?
For example, for you, for people that is important for you, like family.
All right.
Friends. Yeah. And you detect that somebody have anxiety and she or he have an anxiety or depression, and what will be?
All right. There are two ways. Actually, the point of the mindful. Okay, the simple answer is mindfulness. The mindfulness practice allows you to stay in the present moment and not to think too much of the future. All right. So that's a simple answer. But the end goal of mindfulness, one of the end goals of mindfulness, is actually gratitude. All right. So I'm just going to get my 1 minute. I'm just going to give you the precise questions because there is a whole therapy on it. 1 minute. 1 minute, please. Huh?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Maikan. Maikan with 1 minute. 3 questions. Okay. All right. The Nikon's reflection is a daily practice question. It's a daily practice question that allows you to reflect on how things are going. All right, I'll just wait. On how things are on staying at the present moment and being grateful for how things are. And this is, and if you were a couple, all right, and you wanted to strengthen your relationships, and I use this in couples therapy, it is to take a specific amount of time in the end of the day before you go to sleep, 10 minute conversation, and these are the 3 questions. What have I received from you? What have I given you? And what trouble and what positive things have come out of this today? What have I received from you? What have I given you? And what positive things have I come with today? And you can't go wrong with that, right? What have I what I received from you. So you think of, yeah, she cooked lunch for me. She helped me out. She woke me up on time. What did I give to you? I was able to speak kindly to her. I was able to be gentle to her. Even when I was hot-headed, I was able to respond nicely to her. And so how have I created this day? I've created this day in positive relations with her. 3 questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Suzy.
No problem.
Hi, Suzy. I have a question. So, hello?
Wait, guys, I'm supposed to be until 4:35. Guys, will I continue?
Oh, okay. Never
Wait,
mind.
1 minute, huh?
It's okay, Doc Suzy.
It's
Doc
okay?
Suzy,
All right.
it's going great. So I think
Yeah.
we can end in 5 minutes if they
5
have more
minutes.
questions.
So
Yes.
you're gonna tell me, you're just gonna cut in and tell me that we're gonna stop, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
5 more
Continue.
minutes, guys. Ulitin nyo na.
Okay, so Dr. Suzy, so my question is something about like chatting. So for example, back over, yeah. So for example, in the Philippines, when you send, say, a group message, right, to a bunch of people, there's this thing wherein a lot of people just don't respond. Like they don't respond. I feel like it's I'm not sure if it's like for the Philippine setting, but it's a pretty common thing that I noticed. So how do you get people to respond in like group chat, especially for, you know, in a company setting?
Where are you from, Alvin? What country?
So I grew up in Manila, but I also studied overseas. And
Where?
overseas, like when you message Australia.
Okay, what else? Where is it? Australia, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Hofstede cultural dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hofstede cultural dimension talks about the 5 different cultural dimensions of a culture. All right. And Australia the Australians are more easygoing and the power distance, and they have very low power distance, right? Meaning you can talk to your boss and say, hey, what's up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In Manila, it's not that way. Right? In Manila, the power distance is this way. You are the boss and you are the subordinate, and the subordinate does not reply until someone higher than him will reply. So for example, you're my boss, let's say you are the vice president for marketing, okay? And I am a junior person and I have a manager on top of me. And you ask a question, what do you think of the new ad of Jollibee that just came out? All right. Knowing I have a boss, will not reply to you because I will wait for my boss to reply to you. So even if you told me, please reply, I will not reply because I want to make sure that I have to give credence to my boss who must reply first to you. So it could be that they are not replying because they're waiting for someone more senior to reply. Or they want to find out how again, individualistic and collective. In Australia, if you raise your hand and say, me, I know the answer and I can be different, that's a good thing. In the Philippines, it's not like that. Everybody has to be together. And so the pause can be because I am trying to see what my other teammates feel the correct answer will be so that we will all look like we are in one group. So it may be, the answer to you is identify the hierarchical leader or the the leader who's not really the non-direct leader, the person who riles the group, that. And then that's number one. From a social psychology perspective, it can be a bystander effect, which means I will not I will not answer, I will not do anything, I will wait for someone else to do something. If it's bystander effect, the response to the solution is, okay, James, can you tell me what you think of the Jollibee ad? Specific. And James, I also want to know from Jonathan, can you coordinate with Jonathan what he also thinks about it, and you and Jonathan give me something. From a collective perspective, the answer to find the non-hierarchical leader. Let's say his name is Suzanne. Suzanne, what do you think your team feels about the Jollibee ad? Yeah.
All right, thank you.
It may be a culture perspective. Half
Yeah,
speeds, cultural dimension.
All right, thank you. I think that's a really good suggestion.
All right.
That's it. It is officially time, Doc Suzy.
Right.
Thank you. That was a heavy session. I hope you guys enjoyed that. The next time you will get to ask and interact with Doc Suzy will actually be in the real acceleration program. So I hope that provides you motivation to perform well in this pre-acceleration, and you'll get only hours with her then.
When does that start, Alex?
August, around August.
Around August pa.
Yes.
All right. So from now to August, there's no interaction with them.
With you, yes.
All right,
With a
everybody.
special price.
All right, everybody. Thanks lots. I hope you enjoyed the session. Remember 4 things, huh? Know your what is your narrative? Know your triggers. What is the need of the other person? And control your thoughts. All right?
Thank you so much, Doc Suzy, for that wonderful, insightful session.
All right.
It's very helpful to everyone. So thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you also, guys, for participating.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc Suzy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doc.
Bye.